Welcome back to Sage Connections. Today I'm joined by Doctor of Physical Therapy Justin Rada, who specializes in working with golfers and archers, two populations that demand a unique blend of precision, strength, and mobility. We'll dive into the biomechanics, common injury patterns, and strategies for both peak performance and longevity in these sports. Enjoy. What drew you to working with golfers and archers specifically, and what makes these athletes unique compared to the general population?
Yeah. Yeah. Good question. And thanks for having me. It's a chance that I can actually speak about a couple of passions of what I do. And that's what ultimately led me into archery. Something I did growing up, something I did with my dad. And it wasn't until I had a little shoulder injury for myself that I had to get back from that drew me into, okay, I gotta get better at my own rehab and have somebody help me with my rehab. And when I did, and I found the power of it, and I started understanding the biomechanics of archery. And at that time, I was working with golfers over in Birmingham over here, and I realized that they're really similar. And working with archers, like working with golfers, you're working with somebody who is really passionate about their sport. Why? Because it takes time. You can't, and it takes, you got to go places. You can't just shoot hoops in the backyard. Like archery, you got to have space for it. Golf, you got to have the time to do it. So archery was something that spoke to my soul as a hunter and a hobby. And I realized I can impact other people because of the rehab that I was starting to do on my own. So that's how I started working with archers. But golf happened in 2020. It was something I fell into. I was working for a physical therapy clinic at that time. And then COVID happened. Well, a good colleague and brother in Christ, he introduced me to somebody who ran a golf performance place out in Birmingham. And he was a fitness guy and he needed a physical therapist. I'm like, sure, I'd love to do it. My background in personal training, I would love to go help you in the golf industry. I'd never been a golfer myself, but I got in, I started working with golf performance and rehab, and I realized it spoke to me. Something within the biomechanics of the sport, something with the quietness of the sport, the stillness of it, something with the individuals, how passionate they were about their sport. And I realized real quickly, you go in, you work with somebody's knee, they go golf for a weekend. You ask them on Monday, hey, how was your knee? How did it withstand the event? It doesn't matter. All that matters is how did their golf game go on the weekend? Oh yeah, the knee was fine. Okay, great. So you realize you gotta talk golf with them. You gotta eat golf with them. You gotta work golf with them. But it was a beautiful sport, something that really spoke to the quietness, the stillness, and I could relate to it because of my passion with archery. Everything was planned. Everything was behind the ball. So it was a sport that was a very similar individual from golf that was very similar to that same individual for archery. A beautiful sport that was biomechanically sound, very athletic, and it came from the soul if you wanted to do it well. It's really interesting. But the two kind of beget each other with that. And I'm glad I can help treat both because that helps me out in my hobby with archery and my family, my greater life, treating those in those two sports.
Yeah, I've never met, well, I shouldn't say that. I feel like golf is one of the most addicting sports or addictive sports.
Yeah.
Close second is maybe pickleball, but maybe that's a
Yes.
personal bias. But yeah, I mean, the people that get into it, my brother, got into it and there's, no going back now. So
No, there's not. And because once you hit that shot, and you won't ever forget it. And it could have been just like a 10-foot putt you've never hit before. It could be just a drive that went down the center of the fairway. And it'll get you back. It's just like getting that deer that comes out when you're archery hunting. You won't forget it, and it'll pull you back out in the woods. It's a beautiful sport, time consuming golf, but it's just a wonderful sport that'll grab you.
awesome. So can you
Yeah.
talk about like let's get a little technical here. We're both PTs and can you talk about some of the key biomechanical demands for golf and archery and how they influence your rehab and then performance programs?
Sure. I think the biggest thing between the two of them is they're both frontal plane sports. And how we're connected in the frontal plane would be the backside hip. So if you're a right-hander, your lead or your backside hip in golf, and when you're in archery, when you pull it back with your right hand, it'll be that right hip, and your lead side arm, because they both need to be stable. In frontal sports, once you move sideways and you go that direction, you need a stable front side and a stable back side in order to make that motion off of. So for golf, as you're addressing the ball, you need a really good front side foot and arm so you can drive power and move it sideways. Same thing for archery. As you're drawing the bow back, you need to have a really good bow arm, that lead side arm, and a good stable hip to drive back that draw arm. So I think the coolest thing about those two sports is they're actually related, from those two from a stability standpoint. So that was neat, kind of starting to figure that out within archery and golf. And then, so we can train that. You can train the mobility then around those two stable segments. And the other interesting aspect is holding posture control, especially golf when you have to walk the course. You have to not only take those thousands of steps, you then have to hold posture on the 18th tee box, just like you held it on the first tee box. Same thing when you're in the woods and you got to walk into your stand. You have to stand in your archery hunting. You have to stand up maybe for a long amount of time while the deer are coming in, half hour. You have to stand there. You have to hold posture maybe for 5 minutes without releasing the arrow because the deer hasn't come out. So your posture control and your muscular endurance in certain positions is really demanding. So how you address that sport, you're going to have to work that into either your training or your rehab in order for them to be successful out there.
So, speaking of rehab, what are some of the most common injuries that you find or movement dysfunctions that you find in golfers and archers? And you can be separately or something they have in common, but how
Yeah,
do you what are they and how do you typically treat them?
gotcha. Golf pain is pretty straightforward. It's back. It's your low back.
Yeah.
There's so much biomechanical load and transfer forces that happens within a golf swing, that if you're not mobile and stable in some joints, your back is going to absorb that. It's at that crossroads. In archery, you're going to look at probably the front side shoulder or the draw arm. The interesting thing with that is it's usually, like in both sports, actually, it's usually not the culprit. Like in back or in golf, it's the culprit is rarely your back, unless you've had some type of trauma. But because of the biomechanical aspect of the swing and how much you're going to load your front side leg and your front side arm, if it's not doing the job, that transfer of force through the club head is going to get lost somewhere in your body. And usually it's taken up in that low back because of the rotational demands of the sport. So I would say one of the more important things for treating a golfer and having back pain is you got to find out where it's actually coming from. You have to find out, and you have to do a really good screen to find out, all right, yeah, we're going to treat your back. We got modalities and we got treatment techniques to do it. But to truly get good at taking care of golfers, you got to find out where that performance leak is at. Because you're going to have a front side elbow injury, the golfer's elbow.
Mm-hmm.
Or a lot of times it's actually not even the golfer's elbow as much as on the lead side, your tennis elbow.
Mm-hmm.
Either they're pulling it through. Um, you got to find out, okay, why are they trying to swing too hard? Is they're not controlling the forces and driving the ball vertically as much? And you got to find out, and then you got to treat that. And all of a sudden, your job managing their low back pain or their elbow pain is getting much easier because you're taking care of the culprit.
Yeah. So then what does that evaluation look like um, when you're seeing the person for the first time?
The first time, especially with a golfer, you really got to take a look at the culprit. You got to do a good core screen. You got to, the subjective, of course, you got to find out, okay, was it a moment on the golf course, or is it something that built up over time? A lot of these injuries to the elbows will happen on mats. Here in Michigan, you're banging balls off a mat between November and March, and something that your family member might know about and stuff, your brother. And that can happen a lot if you're hitting that mat and it doesn't give like a real turf will. So you can find out, okay, the culprit right there, and you can kind of help and manage in that elbow. But within a back, you gotta look at the biomechanical aspect. Okay, you gotta have them swing, and just easy swinging. They can just a club in the clinic, have them swing, see them move, see them walk, talk to them, let their guard down. Okay, great. Now you got to look at then their core, and you got to do a really good core screen. And I don't know if you are familiar with the TPI screen from Titleist.
Hmm.
And that's what they do for the golfers a whole lot. But there's something more than that. That'll help to really narrow down, okay, what are the deficits in the body from a mobility and stability standpoint? But with a good core screen, you're looking at them at their arms overhead, on their feet, on their knees, in the crawl position, on their back, on their stomach, so prone and supine.
Hmm.
And you're finding out, okay, their back pain, when does it present and in what position it presents itself in? Because if you can find out, well, their back isn't provocative in prone or supine when the rest of the body segments are stable, so we really might not have a back issue. But their back pain really is presented when they're on their feet and you pull their arms forward, because the back is doing too much work because the feet and the ankles aren't doing too much work. So you free up the feet and the ankles, all of a sudden they're stable and their back pain goes away. So you find out, you put them in different positions and try to provoke them and say, okay, well, it's not when they're isolated. So you have a greater issue at hand. So with golfers, it really works because it's such a biomechanical sport. You have to core screen them. You have to see how energy is transferred through these different developmental positions to then provoke back pain, to hopefully then you can quickly alleviate that back pain. Start training them in those positions so they can then grow into and get stronger and help mitigate the chances that they feel that pain.
So a lot of what I do is breath work as a pelvic floor physical therapist. I'm assuming, well, I know that the breath is, a core component of any kind of exertion, including, these kind of the swing and things like that. Do you also incorporate breath work into your rehab?
Yes, yeah. It especially too if they have more specifically some spinal deficits. When you get them into the crawl position, you're testing the limbs, reaching their arms out, reaching their legs back, um, and you notice there's some instabilities within their spine a lot of times, and it's to do with their girdles, their shoulder girdle and their pelvic girdle. Well, they're a little bit out of alignment, so you get them in alignment. And one thing to help with that alignment, because of all the connections with the diaphragm and the breathing and the intercostals, a lot of what helps with that alignment is the nose breathing. So when I'm helping to get their girdles, when I notice the imbalance in crawl, I'm testing them and I'm helping them stabilize, especially I'm helping them stabilize their upper shoulder girdle by adjusting them. I'm going to absolutely help them nose breathe through that. And they don't need to move, and it gives them time, gives them a chance to talk. But when you use those nose breath, it's going to help open up those intercostals. It's going to help with their girdle alignment, especially the shoulder girdle alignment, help release nitrous oxide, help them feel better, let their guard down. And it's going to then ultimately help with that alignment within their spine. So that's how I use it best with golfers, is when notice a spinal issue. And then help them breathe through that, let their guard down, tell their brain it's okay, open up their muscles in that surrounding area, get them to alignment, and then train them there.
Great. So archery and golf especially are kind of these lifelong sports. Do you tailor your programs to older athletes versus younger athletes differently?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Especially, both sports are some that are, like you said, lifelong. You can, let's pick up a bow when you're a kid and just, learn how to fling those little arrows and stick them all over the places, or golf club out in the back. just banging balls into the dandelions. The biggest thing once you're, I would say, middle school and the beginning part of your high school is it's more focused on task with these two sports, whether you're doing rehab or performance, and less specific exercise. I think that's the biggest note to make is that when the younger you are for these sports and you're working with them from the two arenas, you want to do more task-based things. Once you get into late high school, the train to win stage, college and beyond, now is when you can focus on skill, strength building, hormone inducing exercises. So it's task based early on. You're moving as a kid. You're going to be getting them crawling. You're going to be getting them on the ground, digging into the sand, especially for archery. Why? Because when you're digging, one hand is stabilizing, like the bow arm, and you're digging with that draw arm. You're going to have them moving back and forth, using their feet, learning how to be chaotic and work their feet, because you got to have a good stable foot to draw back that bow, or to come through, have stable feet to keep your head still and swing the club. So you're going to work on their feet, some chaos. You're going to work on some task-based, building stability, some crawl, some things in play. Then when you get into later parts of high school, you're after your peak height velocity and your growth, now you can start getting strong. You train to win, and you can develop the idea of what it is to move sideways, because your brain actually doesn't understand the motor pathway of how to move sideways until you're almost 11, 12. So when you see kids kind of running side to side and they're young, they actually haven't developed that strategy yet. Or you see them when they play baseball and they're in the set position when they're 8, 9, 10. It's hard because they haven't developed that yet. You just got to help them do that by spinning and forming, doing exercises and kicking balls and doing things side to side, and they'll develop that motor strategy. But once you do and you're in high school, now you can start training that strategy. So there is a big difference probably through high school, mid high school. You don't want to do the strength, then you do more exercise based. And then when you get later in life through college and beyond, you got to start associating your fitness, your exercise, your rehab, your performance to your purpose. Because the more you can associate it to your purpose, whatever that might be at that time, to play into that sport, to your work, to being a grandpa, to being a parent, you're going to find out they have enjoyment in doing that and the exercises you're going to give them. And they're going to want to do that task for longer. So first is fun and task-based. And then as you start it's getting exercise, hormone-based, purpose-based training as you get a little bit older.
Yeah, or like functional, as we
Yep.
like to say.
Yep, totally.
So for the recreational golfers that are kind of at any age, middle age,
Mhm.
whatever it is, are there any tips that you could give to prevent those specific injuries and to keep people playing, well into the sort of the later years of their life?
Yeah, I think maybe a couple of things we kind of started to touch on is twofold. Is you got to stay strong. I think the biggest, even me going through it now, getting up to the hill, as we'll call it, in age, is you're going to have, especially playing sports, you're going to have injuries. We need to stay strong. And we'll just look at it from that perspective. We'll get to more of what you and I do, the science behind it, because it's perfusion, it's blood flow. Because you're going to start as energy conservation. It's like, okay, well, we're not using it, we're going to lose it. Okay, great. Well, yeah, you need that for sport. You need that to stay on a course for 4 or 5 hours, then go take care of your family. You need it to be out into the woods, to get up early and go do that. You got to stay strong and keep moving so you have blood flow to those joints, blood flow to the brain, add muscle, use that organ to protect yourself. So we got to do that. And we also have to keep a purpose and intention behind our training, because we're going to ebb and flow in life. And if we really love archery and hunting, we want to do it every year. And it should be clear, maybe we don't do other things as much and other activities. Like we can't go spend 3 hours in a gym and go hunting and go play golf and raise 3, 4 kids and go to church on Sunday and praying during the week and work. So our purpose, once we start getting older, is going to help refine how much time we're spending on certain things, what's truly important. And then once you do get in the gym or you're home or you're elsewhere, what are you going to be doing that is going to then beget good performance out in the woods or out on the course, and good performance at home with your kids or at work taking care of that community? So I think the biggest thing is finding your purpose. Yeah, things are going to have to narrow up. And then when they do narrow up, what are you doing with that time? Well, you got to stay strong. But because you got to get perfusion and blood flow. So what are you going to do at that time? You're going to move fast, keep your hormones up. You're going to want to lift weights. For a golfer, you're going to want to lift weight overhead. You got it, because you got to drive that ball vertical. Same thing for archery. You got to keep a really good, strong shoulder. You got to lift overhead. Well, can you lift overhead? We got to screen you to make sure you can. And for golf, you got to get vertical. It's a vertical sport. If you're going to be sitting down and for a job, you're going to reduce blood flow to your legs. A quick side note, I did a work fit, kind of like a movement seminar, and we looked at different sitting positions. Either like you can go cross leg, you can go ankle over knee, or you can just sit with your feet flat. The worst position was cross leg, one leg over the thigh, the other. It cuts off the most amount of blood flow.
Yep.
Yeah, when you're nodding your head, you're like, yeah, what you deal with is all with blood flow.
Yeah.
Second worst position was feet flat. And then the best position out of those three is actually your ankle across your thigh, because it then opens things up a little bit and you get improved blood flow. So in knowing what people's job is and knowing, okay, well, you can't just go out there and maybe pound balls and you're losing distance, because we don't have the ability for you to work your calves and your legs as much to get vertical. So we got to work your calves in the gym. But you can't just go out and sprint, because your tissues aren't ready to handle that. They're getting a little less elastic at this point, and we got to train you appropriately. So it shouldn't be scary. It's like we just got to work on some things, some simple calf raises, some legs, some squats, some push-ups, some pressing. That's going to help you. It's going to help you lift your kids at home. It's going to help you raise your heart rate, get strong, and it's going to help you on your job. So those are some of the things in a greater nutshell to help out.
Yeah, and I just want to point out that this is across all genders. Women as much as men need this, and I'm sure there's fewer maybe archers. I don't know. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's probably fewer female archers, but there's plenty of female golfers.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And yeah, and so all of this applies to everybody. And then, when we take women into account, we also have to take, sort of the hormonal aspect into account, especially as we go through our life cycle, and just be aware of that. And I did another podcast where we talk about how important muscle strength and lifting is for women who are perimenopausal. I mean, it's really important throughout your whole life. You're
Yeah.
sort of protecting yourself from so many things by doing that. But just wanted to.
Yeah, and to that point, golf is such a beautiful sport for women to play, because the intensity is right. The other one is swimming. And I see a lot that do both golf and swimming, and it just aligns so well with the rhythm, what they can do, and they're good. And also too, there's physiological difference. There's mental differences. And women really good at golf because maybe it's easier to focus in and not get as distracted, and it beats to the soul a little bit more in the physiology. And it's wonderful because the swing is so beautiful, and it's something that fits the physiology of women really, really well.
Okay. So let me ask you, so, we're coming up into the winter months here in Michigan. Um, do you recommend people go and do like the simulators? I know you mentioned that sometimes we can develop certain injuries because of the surfaces that we're working with in those simulators, but how
Yeah.
does somebody keep their game up while it's cold and snowy?
Yeah, great question. Work with golfers, one in particular who I talk with and work with a lot in Birmingham, who never used to golf during the winter time. Never used to golf. He would focus on different things, and it's his time to rewind from it. And he would get back. It would take him a little bit longer into the season, probably 4 to 6 weeks, but then he'd be golfing like he finished up the year before, and he was fine with it. He started golfing off of a simulator in the wintertime and training for golf. And he might have started off a little bit better in the spring, and he might be a notch better. But at the end of the day, what's it good for you? Is your golf game at a point where it's important to take those strokes down, to take those strokes off? Because why? Because it's important for your work, or it's important for your family, or it's important for you and your purpose to do that. And you're 12 or 14 handicap. Golfing in a simulator over the wintertime can really help out. It can really, especially if you're going to do it, it takes less time than going on a golf course during the summer. You can do it with your kids. You could do it with community. It's different. So it can really help out. If it's just, if it doesn't fit into why am I doing this into the summertime, I would say no. But if it's really going to help you, you're into that maybe, 8 to 20 handicap, whatever it is. It's going to be really helpful. Yeah, go do it. Does it align with that purpose? So I guess to answer your question, long-winded, does it align with your purpose to improve that golf game?
Great.
Yeah.
So let's switch gears a little bit. And finally, I just kind of want to wrap it up and talk about the current state of physical therapy and rehab in general and, sort of performance help and,
Mhm.
what we do. So how do you feel, like, what's your perspective on the current state of physical therapy today, and maybe touch on the insurance piece? Both of us are out of network with insurance currently. Can you touch on that? Like why you are, and I can talk about my piece too.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'd like to hear your piece. I stepped away from insurance. I'll be going on 2 years here this next year. And it was my calling, almost what the APTA, wants of us as getting a DPT, being a primary care provider. And it wasn't, a knock against insurance, but 2 weeks after I stepped away, it was the busiest I had been and the most fulfilled I had been, in the longest time after running the administration behind the insurance and working for different companies. But it was a way for me to step out to be almost the primary care provider for our musculoskeletal health and to help people because I started as a personal trainer, and that's what I ultimately do, personal training with a license in physical therapy. And it will allowed me to do that more. And then if somebody, because physical therapy is in a good position, we do have a DP, so we have a doctorate. The EPATA is calling for us to do better with, unfortunately, with traditional care and with physical therapy, we're reimbursed to treat the victim. So in order to help out the profession, if we're into it, and I'm going to keep reviewing it, each year, if we're in traditional care and take insurance, we got to get better at treating the culprit. We got to get better at treating and taking the time with the patient to find that culprit so we can truly make that victim feel better, get reimbursed for it better, show better results so we can get reimbursed more. So we're in a great position within insurance-based care to do that. We have the education. There's a system set up that we can work with other healthcare professionals more. But my calling wasn't to do that. My calling was to help people understand those that do that really well in the insurance will. And if somebody does need, one of my members or one of my patients needs traditional care, insurance-based care, to get them into the proper hands. Or if they need you and some pelvic floor, I'm seeing some to get them to you. And that's ultimately what my calling was, to do that, to find those who haven't found answers, that have seen a dad who can't throw a ball. He's had a bum shoulder for 10 years, but now his kids are 5, 6 years old. He can't throw a ball. See him, okay, what was the injury? Screen him. Look, we don't need maybe many sessions. Just need to see you a couple of times. But if I'm the trusted healthcare provider, I can get a membership to my services. I can help train you. help work with your kids, help work with you. And if you need traditional care and rehab, I can help get you to somebody who can take care of that from an insurance if you want to use your insurance. So
Yeah.
that was the reason that I stepped out. But if we get better within the insurance world, treating the culprit, taking the time to do that and fewer visits, we can really do so many great things with this profession.
I agree 100% with everything you said. I think we are incentivized through an ancient system of physical therapy where, we're expected to see multiple people an hour, sometimes up to four, five people, um, and kind of outsource the work to some other it's text. Again, not that there's anything necessarily inherently wrong with that, but we have received an education where we have a doctorate degree and we
Right.
have the knowledge to do more. And, prevention is not covered by insurance, but it would lead to better quality of life for our patients in the long run. And they would use our services a lot less if we set them up correctly from the beginning. With pelvic floor specifically, it's a very vulnerable kind of treatment. There's a lot of components to it, not just physical, there's definitely emotional pieces to it. And so it's not possible for me to hand off one of my patients for 30 to 45 minutes to do exercises alone. It doesn't work for what I do specifically. And so you're right, if insurance can sort of catch up to what the APTA has set us up for in terms of caring for our patients, then by all means, we can be a network and we can provide the correct services. But as it stands right now, unfortunately, it's challenging to do
Yeah,
so and work within the system.
I totally agree. And if you don't mind another minute here, because so many people you probably help, Luba, and what you do will break down, cry. But the reason why, because they just want to thank you. They want to thank you for your service of what you're able to do for them. And that's because also too, it's outside of insurance. A lot of this is with insurance is they're just expected, 12 visits are covered, 16 or 60 visits are covered. And they just go in and, they don't have the buy-in. You can use that term. But what is that term? They don't have the accountability. But when they're coming to see you, Luba, to help take care of them, they're invested. They made that decision because of whatever. Somebody had spoken highly how athletic you are in the workplace. And they came to see you. And they're so thankful and grateful for the service you're able to provide. It's so hard to do that in the insurance-based world when there's so much confusion and frustration from the consumers. They don't understand their own insurance. Wait, what do you mean I have a bill? Wait, what do you mean? I thought I was going to pay a copay. Oh, the insurance paid it for me? Oh, okay. Oh, wow, that was great. Oh, I don't have to pay my deductible. Wait, what do you? There's so much confusion and frustration on our end, just
Mhm.
trying to get reimbursed for an honorable service, and from their end, not understanding but when they come to you, there's a pure agreement for a service that they're going to pay you and are so grateful for what they could do. That's a pure, great relationship in us as a healthcare provider to serve our community.
Yeah.
Um, and the way that we can help touch people, in a way, mentally, emotionally, and holistically of what we can do is my reason for taking this step. And truly know from what you're saying, yours as well.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Thank you for coming on. This was a great conversation. I think it's going to help a lot of people. There's a lot of golfers, not just in my family, but in our Metro Detroit area. So it's
Yeah.
amazing to have you as a resource, and we'll have to do it again.
Thank you. Yes. See you soon. If there's an archer that you come by as well, or somebody wants to pick it up, or a kid that would just fit them to walk a trail,
Oh, I
to
know
get help there.
exactly who to send this podcast to.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome.
So, yeah,
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. This was wonderful.
thank you. Thank you so much to Justin Rada for joining me and sharing his expertise and perspective on working with golfers and archers. I hope today's conversation inspires everyone listening to better understand their bodies, move with intention, and approach their sport, whether recreational or competitive, with more awareness, strength, and longevity. And as always, thank you for tuning in to Sage Connections. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, share it with a friend, and leave a review. It helps us grow this community and reach more people with these important conversations. As always, take care of your health and your wellness.